welcome everybody to another episode of the Internationalie podcast. Before we start, let me talk a little bit about the podcast. So, the Internationalie podcast is going to be a space where different international students, prospective ones, as well as current international students, could get a glimpse of the life of international students in the US or abroad. This week, I am joined by my very dear friend Manavi. Welcome to the show, Manavi.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruth. I'm so excited I get to do this with you today.
Oh, I'm so excited as well. Thank you so much.
And I'm so glad that you had this platform made for all the international students. It's so helpful. Honestly, sharing stories is the best. It's the greatest.
Right? I know, and I can't wait until we delve into our episode. So before we do that, let me talk a little bit about you. So, Manavi is from Kolkata, India. She went to Smith College and majored in economics, and she graduated in 2019. She's currently working on her own startup called the Health Nut. Do you want to add more to your bio?
I'm working on a plant-based startup called the Health Nut, and it's my baby right now. It's very, new, and this just happened because I went vegan for a while in my city, and I realized that there's very few vegan alternatives for products here available, that they're not readily available at all. So I started making my own products for myself, and then slowly it evolved into an idea that I could share it with my community, and then into a business, and now I'm slowly building it up. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I can't believe you have your own company now. That is so inspiring. I cannot believe that you have it. I'm gonna probably share the Instagram handle or different kinds of website on the description of this episode. Yeah, so people could go check it out and see your episode. Yeah. Of course. So yeah. So as the title of this episode is dealing with culture shock, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word culture shock?
Well, whenever someone asks me, I instantly think of that what was that? Convocation.
Yes.
When everybody, right, that was my first impression of Smith. I wasn't told what it's gonna be like because my orientation leader was like, you know what, I'm not gonna give you any information about it, you should just go and see. And then I just see my senior sitting in the living room in what looks like lingerie, and I'm like, oh, okay. This is new.
Yeah. I know.
And especially in India, you don't see anyone sitting in the living room with lingerie on in a public place,
right?
So,
yeah.
So was completely shocking for me, and then I realized it's just a ritual at Smith. Everyone just goes shouting towards the event, and it's crazy. It's so much fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's so empowering to see all these women marching for education. It's crazy.
I know, right? Yeah. So for some people who might not know what convocation is, do you mind explaining it a little bit?
I think I will let you do that.
Honestly, so basically at Smith, there's this tradition, at the beginning of the academic year, where students get together, and it's the start of the new year, right? So for school, and so we're commencing onto this new year, and there's this whole celebration where everybody in different houses, they gather together, and most people choose not to wear a lot of clothes, and then they go out to this big hall, and then the president gives a speech and whatnot. But it's a whole tradition that Smith has at the beginning of the year, to welcome new students and to welcome the faculty and staff into the new year. And so I'm so happy that you thought of that as the segue for us to talk about culture shock, because I think it's a very unique experience as a Smith student that you get, because that is the first time you see like different cultures,
Mm-hmm.
um and you're trying to like understand like, okay, what is
Yeah,
happening here, right? So what
and
was
you
like
can
the
see
first
it.
thought, yeah,
Yeah, you
that
can
you
see
had?
it on the face of an international student. Like,
Mhm.
you know that they're in shock. Like, you know this is
Right.
something they've never experienced before.
Yeah.
So you can,
Yeah.
just by looking at two people, you know which one is what. Like, one is an
Right.
international student and one's American, because like
Yeah.
it's obvious. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really surprising. I
Hmm.
remember we all danced to a song from High School Musical. Everyone just started singing
Yeah.
in sync. It was crazy. It was so much
Yeah.
fun, and we were
Hmm.
all wearing glitter and had like
Yeah.
different kinds of like activities outside the CC. There
Yeah.
were like there were like tumble tossers and like what do you call that? The thing that pushed the you like it pushes you forward into the air. What's it called? A catapult type of thing.
Which one? I don't remember that. Oh, is it the I don't know. I
I
don't
don't know what
remember.
it's called.
I
I
don't
know.
remember either.
And then there's animals. There's goats and there's rabbits and
Yes.
there's sheep.
Yes.
And I'm just in shock. I'm like, I mean, I came to college, but this is
Like
a
a
great,
farm.
yeah, this is a farm. I mean, it's quite
Yeah.
interesting. And there's
Yeah.
ice cream, and then there's,
Mhm.
I just, I never knew that I would be in a space with a professor and um like my peers
Mhm.
wearing lingerie and having ice cream in the same
Right.
room. It was
Right.
not something I had ever imagined. So that was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. I'm so thank you for sharing that, because I think unlike you, before I went to Smith, I knew someone who went there. And so
Mhm.
when I found out that I was going there, I started asking her, "Oh, so, what are the
Tradition.
things that you guys do there?" And then she told
Yeah.
me about this tradition, and I was like, "Oh, really?" And then I googled it, and I was like, "Oh, this is very interesting." And then the day of, as a first year, I remember, like, how we had ISP and we were all like part of the same. Do you remember we were in the same ISP
We
group,
what?
Manavi?
You were Ruth. You were the first person like I bonded with at
Yeah.
ISP. Like we had to write things. We
Yeah.
had 2 minutes to get to know each other, and then
Yep.
or 30 seconds. I don't even remember. And then just write that down and then say it in front of everyone in class.
Yep.
It was
I
so nice.
remember.
And you were the first person I have been friends with from Ethiopia,
Hmm.
and that was
Yeah, for sure. And it was also my first time experiencing like different cultures, meeting new
yeah,
people from different
yeah,
countries. And I remember, do you remember, like, they made us bring like a photograph from home, or like something that, like, an
yeah,
item that
yeah, yeah,
reminded us of home, and
definitely.
then
Mm-hmm.
we had to write about this. I specifically remember like sitting with you in CD Hall and we were talking about each other. Do you remember? And then do you
Yeah, in the
remember
first
like how
floor.
um I had my hair straight, but it was cut short,
Yes!
and then people thought I was Indian.
Oh my god! You're kidding!
Yeah,
Oh my god!
I know. And then, like, after a week or two
Wow.
after I washed my hair, people were like, "What happened to your hair?" Because it went back to being curly. But
Okay.
yeah, it was very interesting. And going back to our conversation about the first culture shock that you
Mm-hmm.
experienced being convocation, what was the most surprising part of that, and why do you think most international students find it a bit different than what they're mostly used to?
I think it was all the attire, the noise, especially, and the kind
Mm.
of enthusiasm that's even allowed on a
Right.
campus. You know,
Right.
like at
Right.
at, at schools in India, at least to the one that I went to, it was, I would say, in ways the discipline was so strict that you weren't allowed to create that much noise in one space,
Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
if it was for a very big event.
Right.
It was heavily monitored, and
Mm.
I think that was a very big shock. It felt
Right.
like I was at a concert, honestly. It didn't
Right.
feel like I was at an educational institute. So that
I
that
know.
was a shock for sure.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And you know, for some students who um do not want to participate in those kinds of events, and it's totally fine. Like I remember
Oh,
I
of
used to
course,
go
of
for
course.
like the free t-shirts, and then
Hmm.
do you remember like junior year or senior year they had like a photo booth, and then you could go to like first
Yeah,
with your friends and then
every
just go home,
yeah, it was
right?
amazing, and the CC turned into a disco.
Yes, it was
It
like a
was
whole party there.
it was a party. Like, I was
Yeah.
the one thing everybody looked forward to every year.
Mm-hmm.
People painted their faces, wore like
Yep.
costumes. It
Yep.
was different. It was very
Yeah.
different.
For
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah, and I also wanted to highlight like the fact that not everybody like participates in these kinds of events, and if you
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
feel like you don't want to, there are plenty of people
That
who
yeah,
abstain from
and
going.
love for sure. I'm sorry,
No, no, you
I'm
didn't.
just
Yeah.
I'm just saying I love the fact that they give you so much space there too. Like, you're given the space to like choose whether or not you want to go to something like that. It's not mandatory. And even if
Right.
it is mandatory, you get the chance to excuse yourself without much involvement. You don't have to
Right.
give detailed explanations.
Right.
They give
Right.
you that much of credit that
Mm-hmm.
you're a
Mm-hmm.
grown woman, um what's right. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
so
Well,
that
thank you for sharing that. It just brought back
yeah.
so many memories. Now I have I even have the t-shirts until now, like the convocation t-shirts. Do you remember? Like they had
Yes,
like
I have
convocation
all the
written in big.
t-shirts. I
Do
love
you?
it. I love it. I wish
Oh,
I'd gotten more t-shirts. Honestly, I think I have 4 or 5 from Smith, but
oh, yeah,
usually everybody used to like um pack and leave towards the end of, especially
yeah,
international students, so I only
yeah,
had limited space to pack in my suitcase, so I
yeah.
used to discard so many things. Personally, I'm a hoarder, so I would
Me
like
too,
collect every
for
I
sure.
swear, like I
Yeah,
would collect, especially we had like huge rooms, you and I, so I
yeah,
would try to like decorate my room with everything. And that
yeah.
that was one more shock, I would say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like people used to tell me this is not the size that usually students get. So
Yeah.
when I saw my room, I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't know I would get
Right.
such huge rooms because of our jobs, you know
Right, right. Do you want to explain
so
what our jobs were? And this is not first year. Trust me, this was
yes,
not the first year.
this was not first year for sure. This
Yeah.
was, for me, it was my third year at
Mm-hmm.
Wilson. I got a
Mm-hmm.
room. So we were HRs, right?
Yeah.
We started as HCAs, which is a house community advisor,
Yep.
and their job is to make sure there's diversity, inclusivity, and
Mm-hmm.
awareness about these things in the house, and to create a very nice environment for folks to like live and communicate and
Mm-hmm.
get along,
Yep.
so to create a safe space basically. So that was nice. And because of what we did, we basically was just being warm people and nice people and got
Yeah.
paid for being that. Which
Yeah.
was another culture shock, honestly. if i
Yeah.
tell if I tell my family, oh, I used to work every week, 10 hours a week, and I used to create organized programs and around
Mm-hmm.
awareness. Over here, I don't know how um that would be considered a real job. Like, that would
Yeah.
that would be considered something you just do out of the
Mm-hmm.
goodness of your heart. Like,
Yeah.
that would be considered something that was volunteering. But
Mm-hmm.
it was, I love the fact that it was actually a job that you
Yeah.
got paid for, and also
Yeah.
got a great room for. So why not? Like, I would sign me up.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's also part of like our college experience, being like heads of residence
yeah.
in our different houses, and with that
Hmm.
comes the responsibility of trying to mediate between conflicts, academic or social, and
Yeah.
it had a lot of responsibility, and we were paid, full time. But then, as like a compensation, we were given these like really big rooms. And I
Yeah.
remember like coming to your room and you coming to my room, and we used to have like friends over because for me
Of
personally, it felt like
course.
a huge space for me to occupy by myself. So I always wanted
Same.
people to come.
Yeah, same.
Mhm.
Like, it would get lonely, honestly, in a room that big. We've
Mm-hmm.
said big room so many times. I feel like other international students might be like, how big was your room actually?
You can explain now. You can explain.
It was quite big. I had like a living room and a bedroom and a bathroom. It was
Yep.
huge. It was half the size of
Same.
the entire corridor of
Yeah.
Wilder.
Yeah.
So it was
That's
sweet. It
crazy.
was it was nice. I'm
I
not gonna
know.
deny that.
I
But
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
I
I
also do
think
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, what
Mm-hmm.
was your biggest culture shock that you saw as soon as you
Well,
experienced it?
I'm trying to remember like my first year. I feel like this whole podcast has been my first year experience, and I think that's because like that that first
Yeah.
year has a lot of experiences, good and bad, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like
Mm-hmm.
the first time you're exposed to a lot of different things. But what came to mind right now was, do you remember how we used to have like house meetings? So the people
Mm-hmm.
who lived in your house, every week, I think
Yes.
we used to like meet up. And so the first
Yes.
house meeting, I think I already told this story. I don't remember, but so the first house meeting,
Mm-hmm.
so it was me and my roommate, and then the entire
Mm-hmm.
students
Mm-hmm.
who lived in our dorm. And so we were
Mm-hmm.
asked, because this is the first time we were meeting, so just introduce yourselves, the names that you use, and your pronouns. So I was
Pronoun.
like, oh, okay. And so I listened to other people, mind you, I listened attentively. And then they were like, oh, my name is so and so, I use she her pronouns, and then they move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was sitting next to my roommate, and then after her was my turn.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I think it was because I was nervous or because I don't know what happened. But then I was like, hi everyone, my name is Ruth, and I use she, he pronouns. And then everybody started laughing. And then my roommate was like sitting next to me, and she like was nudging me, and she was like, it's she, her, Ruth. And I was like, wait, what did I say? And then I was like, oh, I'm sorry, she, her pronouns. And then like that was the first time that I had to introduce myself using
Yeah,
my name and pronouns.
for
And
sure. For
how
me
was that
too.
for
Like
you? Yeah.
for me too. I remember as soon as I got to Smith. Yeah, you're right. The first meeting we ever had with Smith students was a house meeting.
Right.
And that's exactly how I found out about the pronouns, and I was
Yeah.
so puzzled. I didn't know. I think I just mumbled something. I think
Yeah.
I just copied what the person next to me was saying. I
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I said, but I'm sure. I mean, I was clueless.
Yeah.
I feel like Smith has taught me a lot about all of these things, about
Mm-hmm.
pronouns, about you know the different kinds of accommodations that you should have for different
Mm-hmm.
kinds of sexualities and different
Yeah.
genders and all of that. But
Right.
I think before Smith I was very very unaware of these things, so
Right.
that was a huge part of that culture shock for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. And like it was like after a while, because it got like too much, like trying to
Mm-hmm.
memorize the pronouns of everybody, what I came up with was like a trick. It's like just know their names. So whatever their names is, and you just refer to them as their names. You don't have to use
Yeah,
pronouns, right? Because
yeah.
it gets too complicated at times if you're not used to doing that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
especially coming from a culture and a background that where that is not the case, like you don't speak
Exactly.
like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really helpful. Like for me, it helped me just memorize their name. And then
Yeah.
for me, like if it's Manavi, I always call you Manavi. I don't have to say she, her. I just say
Yeah.
Manavi did this, Manavi did that, and that's it. you know
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's really helpful, honestly. So that's and for me, like it's even hard to remember the names. So
Mm.
at first, I was coming
I know.
across a bunch of struggles regarding this, but slowly and steadily, it was a good journey, and I would say I
Hmm.
learned a lot for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think like this is probably like the main types of culture shock that I've experienced. Do you have like any other stories that come to your mind where
I would
you found?
love
Yeah.
to tell you about this one time. This
Yeah,
was the
please do.
funniest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. I woke up at 8 a.m. Okay, and I was hungry.
Uh-huh.
So I was on my way to the dining hall, and this was my first year, mind you. And I was
Okay.
I was in King House, and I go down, and then instead, so I have to turn left for the dining hall, and towards the right is the living room. And
Okay.
so as soon as I come down the stairs, I see a board sign that
Yeah.
says llama in the living room. I was
Okay.
like, excuse me, what does this mean? And I just wanted to make sure that it's not what I think it is.
Uh-huh.
So I went down to the living room, and I I don't know what, I saw a llama
Like
in
the
the
animal?
living room. The animal llama in the living room.
Wow.
I don't even know what went through my mind at the time. I think I was frozen. I was frozen in place. There was
Yeah.
a llama, and people, students were petting the llama, and it was a it was something that they did as a house to de-stress the students. That
Yes.
kind that,
I
that
remember,
kind of
yeah.
dedication to mental health is not
Mm-hmm.
something I've ever been used to. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they spent $200 of the house fund, something around that, to bring a llama in to support the students' mental health. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
of rabbits and goats and sheep's being done in the field
Yeah.
outside the
Yeah.
house,
Yeah.
uh, but I never ever saw a llama in anybody's house. So that was something really shocking.
Yeah. No, I totally, I've never seen like a llama inside a Smith house. This is like my first time hearing about it, but I could just imagine like the shock on your face when you saw the animal there. But
I was
one point that
surprised.
you brought up was the fact that, like, I think it was like during finals or like during times where students are very stressed.
Mm,
Smith plans like these different types of events to
yeah,
de-stress. Um,
yeah,
so one of it
which is
is like,
so nice.
it is very nice, yeah, and
Yeah,
one of it is like pet a pet day,
pet a
and
pet day. Yeah.
yeah, so they bring out like farm animals, puppies, rabbits. Like, I remember
Mm-hmm.
there was
Yeah.
a pony at some point, and you just
Mm-hmm.
go and then you just hold the pets, and then it's actually, I've been there like at every single pet a pet day event because I love puppies, and I even have a picture with
Oh,
one. And it
oh,
really does
that's so
help de-stress,
cute.
especially for someone
Yeah,
who doesn't have a pet in college, but you can
of
have a pet
course,
in
of
college
course.
as an emotional support
Emotion,
animal if you
which
want to.
was another thing that surprised me a lot. I
Yeah,
did
let's
not
talk about that.
know. Yeah, I didn't know that, you're allowed to have emotional. I didn't. First of all, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that
Yeah,
you could have an animal and call it, like, give it the title emotional support pet. Like, that was
right,
not something I ever. So for our jobs, we needed to, like, keep a handle on this, make sure
yeah,
that people who have pets are actually needing them for emotional support and not.
right,
And you need to like have certification or proof for that, and not just call any
right.
animal an animal.
Yeah.
But that was really, yeah, a different thing that I'd never experienced before.
Yeah,
Again,
I know, right? Yeah. And then sometimes, like, telling my friends, like, who did not go to Smith about these kinds of events, and they're like, oh my God, you guys are too fancy. Like, what is all these things that you guys
exactly,
doing?
exactly. Like, fancy is the right word, because honestly, whenever I tell anybody in India, any of my friends who went to Indian colleges, they feel like, we had a ball. Like, we had such a different experience at Smith,
Mm-hmm.
considering over here it's quite different. It's more of a just a student run thing, where the
Mm-hmm.
none of these emotional support animals, even their
Right.
graduation is very different from ours.
Mm-hmm.
Even the attire, like, we have to wear proper graduation robes, and
Right.
we have those ropes around our collars,
Yeah.
if and all of that. But theirs is quite different. It's a 1 hour to 2 hour affair where they get their degree, and they just they have their robes and their hats, but they're
Right.
wearing Indian attire. they're
Ah.
they're they're not wearing dresses.
Mm-hmm.
They're wearing saris,
Right.
which is again a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah, I think the fanciness of our college, especially because it was a small college,
Right.
is unparalleled. Even though I know a lot of international students did complain sometimes about accessibility and
Mm-hmm.
everything that was. I personally feel like we got way more than we bargained for at Smith. So
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Let's
support
talk
was
about that.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me personally, in my experience, support was definitely available when I did ask for it. Like if I didn't ask for it, it was hard because it wasn't something that was already there for many international students, I would say. But if I did go and, rack my brains on how to like get that support,
Yeah.
the school was always there to help or find an alternative at least. So,
Right. Right. And I think this is a very nice segue to like our next conversation, which is like, what was the hardest part about adjusting to college life as an international student, like in regards
mhm.
to culture shock? Because some of it is, right now, because we've been through it, we've
Mhm.
graduated, it's been a lot of years since
Yeah,
these happens, but at the same time, like, while you're in it could be very difficult to adjust, and
yeah,
some of the experiences that you have may not be as pleasant, right? So what was
exactly.
what was the hardest thing for you?
Hardest thing, I would say just in terms of not having my family near me. Whenever we used to get
Yeah.
these long weekends, or whenever Mountain Day came around, Mountain Day was really special. But like
Yeah.
whenever we had like long holidays like Thanksgiving, it wasn't
Hmm.
something I could just fly down to my country for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
students who were local could visit their families, and that was great
Hmm.
for them. But those
Yeah.
were the times where I would be homesick or miss
Hmm.
my home food and all of that so much.
Yeah.
And that was not something I could easily do or like meet my family
Hmm.
and just take a flight because it's so expensive. So
Exactly.
I think that just having the feeling of home my first year was hard, definitely.
Hmm. Yeah.
And in terms of I would say classes, this is funny. For my first year, I didn't know how punctual Americans were. Like
Yeah,
if,
let's talk
eh,
about that.
yeah, that was like, wasn't that new for you? Like
Yeah.
if you tell me you've got to be somewhere 10 a.m. like before Smith, I would be like, okay, if they said 10 a.m., they'd probably start by 10:05, 10:10.
Right.
No, being on time is late. Like you got to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
early. And I
Yeah.
know that's true for like interviews or something really important, a job interview, or your
Right.
first day. But I didn't know that was like the regular schedule that was
Hmm.
followed strictly. And it
Yeah.
would be awkward to walk into a class because your professor's already begun and you're late.
Exactly. I know. I
Mm-hmm.
remember. This actually reminds me of. This is very funny because I remember during orientation for international students.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, they made it, like, they stressed the fact that being punctual is very important as a student.
Mm-hmm.
Professors
Exactly.
start on time, you cannot be late.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess, like, this is also part of culture shock, because the culture that we're used to, especially in Ethiopia, for instance, like,
Yeah.
if someone is saying, like, it's very very common for people to be late to meetings, like, it's part of like our culture now, and I really don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
It has been like accepted part of our society now. So
Mm-hmm.
if you decide to meet up with someone at 11, you're probably gonna meet up at 11:30 or 12. And
Exactly. Like, and there's no hard feelings about that because that was like
no, exactly. And then you
expected.
could see,
Yeah.
you could be like, oh, transportation, there was traffic, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's fine,
Exactly.
right? And then there nobody
Exactly.
would take it
Mm-hmm.
seriously. But then at the same time, it's so for me personally, as I do not like being late to things, and I don't like it when I've
Mm-hmm.
made an appointment with someone and they're late.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do understand things happen, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you could text ahead of time saying, oh, this happened,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna be late. But here, you know what's funny, like, people, so you'd go into like a public transportation and then someone would be like, so you know where you are, right? Because you're going together, and then someone would get a call and they're like, oh, I'm there. I'm almost there, but you're not, and so everybody starts laughing, and it's like that has
Yeah.
happened so many times.
Oh my god, buses were the funniest thing. It's everything is so well connected, but being on a bus, especially in a small town, it's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. You get to see
Yeah.
so many things. I've
Yeah.
had like students pole dancing on a bus.
Oh my god! Like the buses between the colleges, the pupil
Yeah,
buses.
on
Uh-huh.
Halloween, there were
Oh my
two
god!
men, like shirtless with suspenders on,
Oh my
giving
god!
us an entire show. Like I thought I was in Magic Mike XXL. Like it was crazy. It was so
Wow.
funny. And that was my
Yeah.
first year again, so I feel like I'd seen everything at that point. It was
right?
it was
Yeah.
really it was really
Hmm.
fun and also very shocking.
Yeah, very shocking. And I think another part of culture shock is um so aside from the fact that you could see like differences between your culture and American culture, but at the same time
Hmm.
you could also see differences between your culture and other international students cultures, right? And then that could
Yeah.
also be a shock for you because for instance, so
Hmm.
in Ethiopia we eat with our hands, right? And
Yeah.
that's like very common. That's how we
Uh-huh.
eat.
Uh-huh.
But then
Yeah,
in
in
the
India too. Like,
in India
yeah.
too, right? But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that, it's because like, I was friends with you and
Mm-hmm.
other Indian friends that
Mm-hmm.
I found out that you guys also eat with your hands. And I was like, oh, we also do the same. And then that also became a point of connection and friendship. And sometimes you find things that you don't expect to find, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what were some of the things that maybe surprised you about other people's cultures?
Oh, so many, so many. I other people's cultures. Hmm. So, in what ways are you saying?
So I'm saying like I'm trying to maybe like look at it in a different angle because when you say
Mm-hmm.
culture shock, it's kind of like understood like it's the shock that you get from being in an environment
America.
that is different from,
Okay.
yeah, right.
Okay. Got it.
But
Got
I'm
it.
also like trying to see if it's
Mm-hmm.
true, like if you could also experience a shock with someone else's culture but it's not in their country, right? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Definitely. I don't know why I'm like drawing a blank right now. I'm trying to think. But give me some examples. So if
I
maybe
mean,
it's
for
gonna.
instance, it could be food. Like, do you remember International Students Day, where
Oh,
we
I would.
cook?
Yeah, I loved that. That was
Yeah.
one of my favorite events at Smith. Like it was the event to look forward to, honestly, for me, because you get to
Mm-hmm.
cook, you get to share your culture through
Mm-hmm.
food, and you get to
Yeah.
experience so many other cultures. And I think
Exactly.
doing that through food is and do you
Mm-hmm.
know, Ruth, that my favorite cuisine? You have no idea after graduation how much Ethiopian food I've consumed on a
Are you
regular basis.
serious?
I am serious. I was in
Uh,
when I have traveled a little bit after graduation. I went to Philadelphia, I went to Seattle,
mm-hmm.
and the first thing I did after landing was
Yeah.
go to Ethiopian restaurants in
No way.
Manavi.
Are you
I
serious?
swear to God,
Wow.
there is not a single Ethiopian restaurant in my city. And for 3 years, I've been
Yeah.
complaining to my brother
Oh,
in the
I'm
states that I
sorry.
need.
Yeah.
I have resorted to trying to get teff flour and making my own injeras, but I have not been able to do that.
What? Are you serious?
I'm
Oh my
I'm
God. I'm so
serious.
proud of you. This
I
makes
have
me so happy.
I'm gonna make it one day and send you a picture and tell you.
Please do.
I love Shiro Wat. Like that with the injeras
Oh my God.
is something I miss so much.
Yeah.
You should
I
ask
know.
Tamika. Like Tamika and I
Yeah.
would go almost every week and have Ethiopian
Mm-hmm.
food like 30 minutes away from her house. It was
Wow.
it's something
That's
I miss
amazing.
dearly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for telling me that. I could see I've had some influence on you,
You
huh?
have definitely, you have no idea. You had such a great influence in terms of Ethiopian food. I used to
Yeah.
look forward to your cut in what's that house where you used to like make the Ethiopian food every time in
Cutters.
the new Qatar Z. I was gonna say Qatar, but I was not sure.
Yeah.
Qatar Z.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you used to make
Yeah.
that every. I think you made it for 2 years, right?
Yes, yes.
Because
We cooked.
you won
We did
the
win a contest.
competition. Yeah.
Yeah. And they cooked it in
And
the
I used to
other dining house. Yeah.
exactly. I used to get so excited.
I
That was my
know.
favorite.
I know.
That was
And even for me, like this is so weird to say, but I so do you remember during ISB? I always go back to ISB, but do you remember during
no, it's
orientation for international students, they brought
mhm.
in chai. Okay. So
Yes.
at that point, I didn't know what chai was. So for us in Ethiopia, we mix milk and tea with sugar and then we drink it if we want to. But it's not like
Yeah.
very, very common. But some people do it and I used to do it
Hmm.
too. But then this chai that I tasted, I was like in love with it. And then I
Yeah.
remember I used to make Anushka make it for me because it was so
Aww.
good. And
That's
it's like
so cute.
a sharing of cultures as well. Like you learn about other people's cultures, and then even your
It's
taste
so
buds are going to be very, very happy with you.
definitely, definitely, and I see so many similarities as well in different cultures in terms of food. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's scallion pancakes; they taste exactly like parathas, and then there is
Mm.
parathas also in different cultures
Mm-hmm.
that I'd never imagined.
Right.
In different, like it's so interesting to see how similar different kinds of
Yeah.
foods from cultures are. It's
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that is
And
something I could only experience at Smith, nowhere else.
for sure, for sure. And then you could also see like the similarities in people's cultures as
Mhm.
well. I just remembered, like, so they have chapati in Kenya, which is like the like
Yeah,
naan.
chapati,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like naan,
Yeah.
almost like naan. It's kind of similar. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have, biryani in Indian food, and then there's pilau in Kenyan or
And
Ugandan food.
there's
So
palau here too,
yeah,
which is so yeah. There's palau
wow,
here too. I love it. I love it.
yeah,
It's got like similar names as well. Like it's
that's so
so
interesting. I didn't even know
yeah.
that. So talking about, like, culture shock, another question that I wanted to ask you was,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess for someone who is going maybe to the US for the first time, what are some of the things that they should be mindful of or look out for?
I would say like stereotypes in general for
Mm-hmm.
different cultures. Like stereotyping is something I think may easily offend any culture.
Mm-hmm.
And also like preconceived notions of how people from specific countries are.
Right.
For example, I mean, I'm not gonna name names, but I had this professor once tell me, "Oh, you're from India. But you speak such good English."
But
And
yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
was a little like, "Wow, uh, you're a professor at the college I go
Yeah.
to, and I did not expect this. I mean, I've been schooled in English since I was a child. It was the primary mode of education
Yeah.
and primary language used in
Right.
my school and throughout my growing years. Even at
Yeah.
home, we talk in English mostly, and we were
Uh-huh.
colonized, so of course. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something like that's not my fault, but thank you
Exactly.
for acknowledging the fact that I know that
Mhm.
language.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was something I feel people should be aware of. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's basic, right?
Yeah,
Today
for
English
sure.
is the most common language in the world, so
Yeah.
it's not surprising if anybody else knows that, so it shouldn't be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also agree with that, because I used to always get those kinds of comments, like,
Yeah.
so much, to the point where I had to devise an answer. So I used to
Mm.
say, oh, so they used to always be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're from Ethiopia and you speak such good English. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then at
Yeah.
some point, like, that still did not seem to satisfy their quest to know, like, how I came to, like, speak such good English. And so I started saying it's because I had good teachers. But in reality, that wasn't the case. But it
Oh.
seemed like such a great answer. I was like, I used to get
I
that a
love
lot
that.
as well.
It's like they need to know like what the secret is. Like it's not
Hmm.
possible. I mean, you're special if you know.
Yeah.
It's not
And
special to know English. Excuse me.
yeah, but then they find it so hard to be. And I also remember specifically there was this one person who was like, do you know Mindy Kaling from The
Oh
Office?
my
You
gosh.
sound
So many
exactly like her.
times.
Yeah, did you grow up watching her show? And I, mind you, I have never watched The Office at that time.
Same.
And I was like, who's Mindy Kaling? And then the
Oh
guy is
my
like, oh,
god.
never mind.
I swear to God, so many stereotypes.
Yeah.
Like, can't even tell you how many times that has
Mm-hmm.
been the topic of conversation. And
Exactly.
when I was new at Smith, even something I was aware that could like it's a microaggression or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't aware of these terms
Mm-hmm.
being something that's even you know a
Yeah.
thing. Like I didn't know that these were things you had to look out for. I thought that was just
Right.
somebody making conversation with me, and I was like, oh,
Right.
it's it's interesting that you said that it's different, but I didn't instantly get offended.
Right.
I would mull over it in my head, and then when I started talking about this more and more and getting more aware
Mm-hmm.
about these things, I realized how, cultural appropriation and all of
Mm-hmm.
that a
Mm-hmm.
huge a huge problem. But that
Yeah.
was very very new to me as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There are a lot of things that you have to get used to, I guess, and it's
Yeah,
almost that as if because that's your life now, right? Your parents are not there,
definitely,
your
definitely.
your close friends are not there, and so you're just
Hmm.
there in like a bubble in a new environment, and you're
Yeah,
trying to just, get on with your day. And um
exactly.
it's
Just
I
figure
think
out.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, you go.
it's funny. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, you're right. It's funny how, these things become a part of your daily jog. Like, I feel like at Smith people were overly cautious as well. They were
Yeah.
so cautious of not making a mistake because there was a
Right.
huge culture around being very politically correct.
Yeah.
And I think people used to stop themselves from even
Yeah.
having their opinion voiced a lot of
Right.
the time because they were
Right.
afraid of being snubbed down. um
Exactly.
Even though, like, as HRs we would promote, calling in versus calling out and all of that,
Right. Right.
which is again a very new thing because um I've never even been, had to sit down and been taught these terms in the
Right.
first place.
Right.
So, like, action, power in action, and all of that, like, that was
Mm-hmm.
very new to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very good experience. But
Yeah.
these are the things that, what was I saying?
No, we were just
How-
talking about how because I actually really appreciate the fact that you brought up how people try to be politically correct, but then at the same
yeah,
time, in trying not to offend someone, whatever
yeah.
they're saying, it doesn't make sense,
It
right?
doesn't make sense, and they
Yeah.
don't put their opinion forward. It's like you're going with the herd.
Yeah,
You don't have a
exactly.
voice.
Yeah. So I think if you like genuinely are, curious about someone else's culture and you really want to get to know them,
Mm-hmm.
be friends with them. Try to ask questions as a friend. So
Exactly.
then it doesn't
Yeah.
come off as an unsolicited, or
Right.
unwanted kind of question.
Right. Like, you don't want to, you want to be talking in a safe space where you
Yeah.
can share your ideas, and
Yeah.
even if you have questions, like, knowing how to, like, um just explain yourself in
Mhm.
a way that is not an attack on
Right.
people,
Right.
being able to make conversations and know that if the other person is saying something offensive, it might be coming out of a place of ignorance rather than, um purposely trying to
Yeah.
attack.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's also something like you learn as a national student. I think the years also go by, you get used to encountering people like that, and then you learn how
Mm-hmm.
to navigate it. Like, sometimes you choose to answer those kinds of questions, but then
Yeah.
other times you could choose not to, and that's completely
Yeah.
fine, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, learn how to say no as well. Like, you don't have to
Mm.
be everywhere and say everything or answer every
Right.
question. You're allowed to,
Mm-hmm.
choose to be by yourself or not give so much of yourself in some sort of a
Exactly.
debate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. You have to choose your battles, right? Because you can't fight
Yeah.
every single fight. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. And then this just came to my mind. I was just thinking, have you noticed how because I wanted to ask you your experience, like as an international student at Smith,
Mm-hmm.
and in college, did you find it difficult to become friends with the domestic students? And did you see like a common pattern of international students tending to stick together and not really mingling with the domestic or American students?
That's such a great question. Like, honestly, there was I would definitely say there was that kind of a atmosphere where, you feel like you're more in touch with your own culture, or like someone who's had the same experience as you. So you
Right.
would naturally gravitate towards someone who's from an international background because, you're
Right.
both sort of new here, and you're both learning new things and experiencing new uh things over there. And
Yeah.
I think I personally had more international students, and I've seen um other international students also be friends with more of an international cohort rather than a domestic one. Although
Mm-hmm.
there were, like, I personally do have like domestic friends as well, but
Yeah.
I would say the majority is diverse.
Right. Right.
The majority of the friends that I had were like diverse.
Right. Right. And I just asked you that question because even for me personally, I think this is also part of culture shock because, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, let's say we're in a classroom, right, and then you get to
Mm-hmm.
do like a group assignment with someone um
Yeah.
who's who's from the US, and then
Mm-hmm.
after that class is over, you walk to class or during campus, and then you're like, oh, hi, how are you? But then, like, sometimes, like, after that class is over, you're just acquaintances, you're not friends. And so, oh,
Yeah.
I did not know, like, it stopped when the class ended,
Yeah.
so that was also my my shock as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like that's very true. Over there, the first thing you say to someone is, "Hey, how are you?" Even though that person is probably not very interested in your day. That's just
Yeah,
something they say. So,
exactly.
yeah, I think choosing your friends wisely there is
Hmm.
something I've learned
Yeah,
the hard way
yeah.
as well.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is also like such a great segue to the question I wanted to ask you, which is like, how did you build your own community at Smith, and how did that help you deal with culture shock? Like, how did you
Mm.
find your people?
I think I personally build friendships while working together on something,
Mm-hmm.
like be it in a class or be it in an extracurricular activity or even like in a project, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So most of my friends were through different forms of activities. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I built a community. I joined a club where I
Mm-hmm.
actually made a lot of friends, and that was
Yeah.
Ekta, and that
Mm-hmm.
was a South Asian organization. So I think I found my
Mm-hmm.
people there.
Yeah.
Definitely, I mean, clubs definitely help like a
Mm-hmm.
lot in terms
Mm-hmm.
of building your own circle at Smith.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. And I also agree with that because even for me personally, from what I remember from college, I think the friends that I met were not only from the classroom, it was the events I went to, it was the clubs that I joined,
Mm-hmm,
it
mm-hmm,
was
mm-hmm,
the things that I decided to do outside of class that
mm-hmm.
really, made that bond really form, and we're
Stronger.
still connected to this day, and we're still friends, and this
Yeah.
just goes to show how really crucial it is to have those kinds of friendships in college, because whenever you're having a hard time,
You
it's
can
the
reach
friends that
out.
you have,
Yeah.
exactly, it's the friends you have around you,
Mm-hmm.
that you can turn to, and
Yes.
then when someone's birthday, and then we go out, and then we give each other gifts, and I still
Oh,
have like
I
all the
love
cards
that.
and the gifts that I
Oh,
received
that's
from
so
you guys,
sweet.
and it just
That's
makes you
so
feel like
sweet.
you're part of a community, and that you're not
Mm-hmm.
alone, even though
You're not
technically
alone.
you are.
No, 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 no. Definitely. Especially like your birthdays, Ruth. We would
Yeah,
always go to the ice cream parlor,
I
and
know.
that was something that
Yeah.
was so memorable for
Yeah,
me.
I
And
know.
I love that we were in a small town, small enough that whenever it's your
Mhm.
birthday, you could go to
Yeah.
Harold's and get a free scoop of ice cream.
How
Even though
amazing
like
is
you
that?
wouldn't, yeah, that's amazing. It
Yeah.
feels special, even though it's a
Mhm.
tiny ice cream. I feel like you have a town that supports you.
Yeah, exactly. I used to remember like how we used to go with our passports to prove that, today is our
Yeah,
birthday.
because we didn't have an American ID.
Exactly. Exactly. And then
So
they're like,
funny.
"Oh, okay." But then there were some people who were trying to, get like more ice creams in a year. But
Yeah,
that's really
because they
funny.
had different IDs that said different
Yep.
things.
I know. That's actually funny. Yeah.
Oh my god. And I think one thing that's really funny, and I'm sure like every international student or every person of color has probably taken advantage of once in their lifetime, is when your ID, when you use somebody else's ID, but they don't know that because they cannot identify from your face
I
that
know.
you are probably not this person just because
Exactly.
of the color of your
Exactly.
skin.
Yeah. Oh my god, this just randomly came to mind. So as you remember, we weren't that many like Ethiopians at Smith, so it was just like a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah, very
And so
true.
one time I was in the dining hall, And this, mind you, so in the quad, I don't usually go there unless there's like good food. But then this one time I went there because
That's
there
so
was Indian food.
yeah, because it's like all the way in the
It's very
suburbs of
far.
Smith.
Exactly. But they had samosas, and I was like, oh my god, finally some good food. And so I went there, and I
Costco.
was yes, and I was literally in line, and this girl comes up to me and she was like, okay, so I finished all the laboratory assignments, so I'm gonna email you. And I was just like, mind you, I don't know this girl, and I'm not taking any laboratory classes. And I immediately knew that she had mistaken me with another Ethiopian on campus. But then I just kept her going, like I didn't interrupt her. And then she kept on telling me about the assignment and when we're gonna meet up. And then I was like, after she's done, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm the person you think I am. And she's like, aren't
Oh,
you so and so? And I was like, no, that's not me. And then she
oh
was
my
so shocked, and she was like, oh,
god.
I'm so sorry. And then she left. But then,
Oh
like,
my
I could
god.
like kind of understand because we look kind of similar,
Yeah,
because we're literally the only ones there.
that's
But at the same time, like, if
no. But
if there
still, like
are,
I
right?
feel like I agree with that experience. Like that is something. Like
Have you been
this is
mistaken
not.
for another Indian?
Oh my god, so many times. But I think people would. I think it's probably because me and Anushka were always in pairs.
Yeah,
Also, like people would
yeah,
call me Anushka or call her Manavi or something like that. Definitely
yeah,
happened.
for sure.
That's something. Yeah, that's like a part of I would say being an international student as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
huge part of being a
Yeah.
person of color too. Like you just get mistaken for someone else for no reason.
For no reason at
and
all.
you and you know what, you don't even, sometimes it happens with people who don't even look like you, like not even 1%, and
Thank
you're just
you.
like, in what world did you imagine that
I
this
know.
girl looks like me?
I know. But that's also part of culture shock. Like if you've never been mistaken for someone else, trust me, you're gonna be
Yeah.
surprised. But I think this has been like such a wonderful conversation, and as we're ending our
I love
conversation
it.
on culture shock, do you have any advice for prospective international students, for current international students who are currently going through culture shock?
Oh, I would that's a tough one. I would say, just have an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
Know that you're going to be in a space full of different cultures, so be open to experiencing that and learning from that, rather than judging something immediately just because you're not used to it, or you've never seen that before.
Right.
Just listening more at
Mm-hmm.
first
Mm-hmm.
would be the biggest advice, because I know a lot of people are very eager, and they're very excited, but they end up making a few mistakes that they probably wouldn't make if they were listening actively rather than trying to put in their word.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I also believe that, you're trying to fit into this kind of environment,
Mm-hmm.
and at
Mm-hmm.
first you want to draw a connection with someone new that you're meeting, right? So when they're
Yeah.
talking, you have this urge to talk about your own story, and to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I remember that movie. Oh, I did this too. I did that too. But then you miss out
Definitely.
listening to the whole story of the other person. And I really appreciate the fact that you brought up, actively listening and being open
Yeah.
minded can tremendously help you deal with culture shock.
Oh, you're so nice, Ruth. Like you're so sweet. Like I love it. I love this
Ah,
conversation. It was so smooth. I feel like I
yeah,
was just talking to you. It wasn't.
exactly. And I also wanted to say, like, you're one of the most understanding people ever. Like, you're
Oh,
very
you're
eager,
so
and you're very supportive, and you're such a great friend. And
You're such
um
a great friend. I'm so glad that I've seen you after so long that we
I
actually this
know,
happened. I'm
I
so happy.
know. Thank you so
And I
much,
love your
Manavi.
podcast. All the love and support from me. Like this is just
Aw.
take this forward and make this is gonna go so far.
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna
hope
share it
so.
with everyone I know. I have shared it with most of my international friends.
Yeah,
I'm
I know that.
so
Thank you so much for the support. It means a lot to me. Is there any last thing that you want to say before I end?
please come to Calcutta. come to Kolkata and have
I'll try.
a very, very good time with me. I'm going to
I'll
show
try
you
my
around.
best.
And you're going to learn more about me and my culture, and I'll learn more about you. And we're going to have a good food journey because I know, like, you and I,
Yes.
Anushka
Love food.
too, like, we love
I
food.
know.
And
For
we used to
sure.
go, like, I remember we went to, what was that Thai restaurant? You, me,
Yes.
and
Thai
Anushka.
garden.
Thai Garden this one time, and it was so
Yeah.
much fun. I think Kirtana was also there, and we
Yep.
all
A lot
just
of
had
our
a
friends
really
were
good
there.
meal.
Yeah. We had this
Yeah, it was
like
so much
tradition. Do you
fun.
remember at the end of the semester we used to all go
We
out?
so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
it
was
was so
really
much
funny.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you
you
should
should
also
do
come.
that. You should come to India, and we're gonna have an entire tour. It's gonna be so much
I
fun.
I would love that. If this COVID thing goes away, then
I
why not?
swear.
And you should also come to Ethiopia, and then I can show you around.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna come there, live with you for a few days just
Oh
for the food. I'm
yes.
gonna eat so much food made by Ruth.
Oh, okay. I'm
You're
not
gonna
that
cook for
much of a
me.
good cook, but I try. I try.
No, I'm sure you are. Please, I've had your food. It's amazing.
Yeah,
You cooked
but
for the entire dining hall. That
I
was
know.
that was insane. I don't know
Yeah.
how you had the energy to do that day.
I mean, I wasn't by myself. So for the International Students Day, there were other Ethiopians also, and we cooked
Mm-hmm.
together. So it wasn't
Okay,
only
wow.
by myself. Yeah, for
Yeah, from the
sure.
whole group who like
Yeah,
participated. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Manavi, for this
Thank
amazing
you.
conversation. I'm very happy that we finally did it.
Me
And
too. I'm
so,
so happy.
yeah. Do you want to say something?
No, no, no. I was just saying I'm really happy to.
Uh, I'm very happy as well, Manavi. So as a last, housekeeping item, please make sure to go follow the official Instagram page, Internationally
Yes,
by
right
Ruth.
now, right now,
That
right
is
now.
LIE, and send an email with your questions or concerns about being an international student to internationallybyruth@gmail.com. Thank you again for tuning in today. I hope you have a lovely week ahead of you and take care of yourselves, everyone. Bye.
Bye.